dedicated to Dr. Albert Schweitzer, who said, "Man has lost the capacity to foresee and forestall. He will end by destroying the earth."
The modern environmental movement, as we know it today, was kicked off in the mid-20th century. A single book claims nearly all of the credit for creating a cultural revolution with massive national and international legal repercussions that have reverberated for well over 50 years. That book is Silent Spring, written by Rachel Carson and published in 1962. At surface glance, one might consider the author of Silent Spring a hero for kickstarting the modern environmental movement. But if we dig a little deeper into Carson's history, we will discover a much darker reality. It was renowned British nature writer Henry Williamson and his anthropomorphic books, like Tarka the Otter and Salar the Salmon, that inspired young Carson to become a nature writer. Williamson was a prominent member of Oswald Mosley and Lady Eve Balfour's Soil Association. For the first half of her career, Carson gained acclaim for writing several books on a topic in which she had formal training, the ocean. But in 1962, the marine biologist author suddenly switched gears. Instead of writing about fish in the ocean, her focus changed to invisible, poisonous chemicals and substances that supposedly threatened the very foundations of life. Silent Spring became an explosive bestseller, but how did it come to be? To understand the foundations of the culture-shattering book Silent Spring, we must begin with two affluent Long Island women, Marjorie Spock and Mary Richards. In their early years, they traveled to Dornach, Switzerland, to train at the Goetheanum with the occult leader Rudolf Steiner. Rudolf Steiner was an Austrian esoterist, proclaimed clairvoyant, and leader in Helena Blavatsky's Theosophical movement, which he later used as the basis to spin off his own version, Anthroposophy. Steiner's spiritual science of anthroposophy was a twisted concoction of German idealist philosophy, theosophy, and Christian Gnosticism. Through anthroposophy, Steiner and his guild founded Waldorf Education and Biodynamic Agriculture, two institutions with a small but powerful influence on our world today. After several years of Steiner's tutelage, Spock and Richards returned to the United States and transferred to the personal guidance of Dr. Ehrenfried Pfeiffer, a close student of Steiner and a key proponent of his teachings. Pfeiffer played a central role in introducing biodynamic farming to America. The post-World War II era saw an explosion in industrial farming methods and scientific breakthroughs, creating food surpluses which condemned Malthusian prognostics to their grave once and for all, or so it may seem. Not everyone rejoiced in this outcome, and the organic farming movement began to take root in reaction to industrial farming. The chemical known as DDT was first used to protect soldiers from malaria and typhus in World War II, and later applied to civilian use, both as disease prevention and as an agricultural bolster. Its benefit to mankind was nothing short of miraculous. Over the summer of 1957, state and federal control planes sprayed Long Island with DDT, which included Spock and Richards' organic garden. Spock and Richards were outraged, claiming their crops were ruined and their soil was totally compromised. Within the esoteric religion of anthroposophy, man-made chemicals are seen as more than just physical threats. They can disrupt the subtle harmony between body, soul, and spirit. Rudolf Steiner's American disciples Marjorie Spock and Mary Richards decided to sue the government.
1957, Murphy versus Benson. This may well be the first modern environmental case brought by citizens, despite the conventional wisdom that the Storm King case started the field. Robert Cushman Murphy, a biologist who was curator emeritus of birds at the American Museum of Natural History, was among a group of property owners who sued the New York Department of Agriculture.
As it turns out, Spock and Richards had very affluent neighbors who happened to be sympathetic to their cause. The high-profile chairman of the Department of Birds at the American Museum of Natural History, Dr. Robert Cushman Murphy, was enlisted not only to help the women, but as the lead plaintiff on the case. It was Henry Fairfield Osborn's nephews who had kicked off the Storm King case, and Robert Cushman Murphy who helmed the DDT case. But the Osborn and Murphy connection is more than mere coincidence. In 1950, Robert Cushman Murphy wrote of the late Osborn.
Upon my daily entry through the first floor of the Roosevelt Memorial Wing of the museum, I pass Joy Buba's bronze portrait of his countenance. Then I salute him not only as the outstanding paleontologist of the golden age of that discipline, as a biologist of magnificent breadth, a seer, philosopher, and friend, but as the great-grandfather of some of my grandchildren.
The two seemingly separate cases, which had laid legal precedent for the American environmental movement of the last 50 years, were steered by colleagues, friends, and family who had been in ideological lockstep. The affluent strain of concerned citizens ran deep. In addition to the anthroposophist women, Murphy persuaded other landowners on Long Island, including Jane Nichols, the granddaughter of financier J.P. Morgan, and Theodore Roosevelt's son, Archibald, to join them as plaintiffs. And from the United Kingdom, the Soil Association sent a $100 check to Spock in support of the campaign.
Murphy versus Benson. In rejecting that claim, the court also stated, "It would seem that the plaintiff's major complaint is of annoyance rather than damage."
At first glance, the court case was unsuccessful, overturned as pseudoscientific nonsense. Just like the Storm King case that came after it, the court of law did not find the annoyances of privileged rich people to be reason enough to dismantle the welfare of the general public. But the case laid the groundwork for a deadly cultural shift. Rachel Carson, by this time a respected science writer, caught wind of the court case and pitched it as a serialized story to the New Yorker magazine. With looming doubt over whether the New Yorker gig would materialize, Carson made plans to turn the story into a book. She hired Newsweek science editor Edwin Diamond to co-author. Carson would compose the introduction and conclusion of the book, while Diamond would write the scientifically based meat of the middle. Within 4 months, Diamond quit the project. A year after Silent Spring was published, both in New Yorker magazine and as a best-selling novel, Diamond wrote a damning review.
Thanks to an emotional, alarmist book called Silent Spring, Americans mistakenly believe their world is being poisoned. Silent Spring, it seems to me, stirs the latent demons of paranoia that many men and women must fight down all through their lives.
It was clear Diamond had quit the project based on moral grounds. He wanted no part in a book that would promote pseudoscience, causing fear and paranoia in the general public. This moral objection did not stop Carson. In fact, she seemed quite aware that the book would have cultural implications extending far beyond her lifetime. She told her publisher, Mary Rodell,
I know you have not had my opportunity to visualize the deep significance of the material of tremendous importance in itself, and also meaningful in relation to my broader concern with what life, and especially man, is doing to the environment.
Carson was also well aware that the organic food movement had a poor reputation, and if there was any association with the movement, the book would be dismissed out of hand. In order to sneak her message into the American psyche, Rachel Carson excluded any reference to the organic food movement or anthroposophy in the book Silent Spring, despite the fact that it was the main source for the book's contents.
I am most grateful for all the material you have sent me. I am delighted there is so much sound material. Many thanks for the very excellent Pfeiffer paper with its many references. It is a gold mine of information.
The author of the gold mine paper was Dr. Aaron Freed Pfeiffer, who also appeared as an expert witness in the Long Island spray trial. An entire edition of the U.S. periodical Biodynamics was devoted to Pfeiffer's account. Carson wrote to Spock regularly, with a variety of queries, questions, requests for addresses of contacts, and for copies of articles. Carson frequently expressed her thanks for new material.
Your good letter and enclosures have just arrived, all excellent, helpful, and stimulating. I feel guilty about the mass of your material I have here. You are my chief clipping service, and I do appreciate all you do.
Carson didn't credit the organic movement in Silent Spring because she didn't want to discredit her book. She was tasked with covertly embedding the axioms of organic farming without people's knowledge, smuggling in the organic food agenda to an unsuspecting public.
I'd have to write a funny little song that sneaks the message in, go in through the back door.
We'll all be a doubling, we'll all be a doubling in 42 years. We'll all be a doubling, we'll all be a doubling in 42 years.
In 1961, I was at the Jackson Hole Research Station in Wyoming, and at that time, Rachel Carson's book was about ready to come out. They had a little excerpt from the book in the New Yorker magazine, which I read at the research station along with everybody else, and we were all impressed at how awful industry was and how wonderful environmentalists were. And I was impressed that way until I got the book that following fall and began to read it. And I got more than halfway through the book before I began to see too many things I just couldn't go along with. And then I made the mistake of trying to check on her facts, and I found that the facts just weren't valid. For example, well, her dedication is to Albert Schweitzer, who, famous African physician, of course, humanitarian. And what she said Albert Schweitzer had said was that man has lost the ability to foresee and forestall. He'll end up destroying the earth. Unfortunately, she implied that this meant that the DDT and other pesticides were going to destroy the earth. So I got Schweitzer's autobiography, and what he says in the autobiography I can quote exactly. I've used it so many times. He says, what a tremendous amount of harm and labor these wicked insects do cause us. But now, he says, at last a ray of hope is held out in the form of DDT.
Malaria once plagued America. With the arrival of DDT, it vanished from national memory. But the story did not end there. Today, malaria continues to kill more than 500,000 people every year. Over 90% of those deaths strike Africa. The vast majority are small children. Since 1972, roughly 34 million African children have died from malaria.
Malaria is poverty, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Period. They're synonymous.
Yeah. And those that they die by malaria are the most poor. You are poor, you get malaria, you become more poor. If he has to go to the hospital, he has to pay transport, taxi, buy the medicine. If he's admitted, every day has to bring somebody food from home. At the end, they are more poor with malaria.
Silent Spring kicked off a national debate about the use of DDT.
At his press conference on August 29, 1962, President Kennedy was asked,
"There appears to be growing concern among scientists as to the possibility of dangerous long-range side effects from the widespread use of DDT and other pesticides. Have you considered asking the Department of Agriculture or the Public Health Service to take a closer look at this?"
Yes, and I know that they already are. I think particularly, of course, since Ms. Carson's book, but they are examining the matter.
The next day, the administration announced that the government pesticide program would be reviewed by the Federal Council on Science and Technology and by a panel of the President's Science Committee.
But the insecticide did not get banned until 1972 under Richard Nixon's newly minted EPA.
The Nixon administration moved today to cut back the use of the pesticide DDT because of a study calling it a health threat.
The attacks on DDT based on Silent Spring and the environmental movement began. And it became a superstition and fear that DDT was a horrible killer, that it was killing fish and killing eagles and other birds of prey, and that it was a cancer-causing agent in human beings.
In 1969, the Sierra Club and the Audubon Society had asked the Secretary of Agriculture to ban DDT, claiming that it did cause cancer.
The Audubon Society spun off a group called the Environmental Defense Fund for the sole purpose of lobbying to ban DDT. The issue finally came to a head in 1972 at hearings at the Environmental Protection Agency.
Victor Yanacone, unpaid counsel for the Environmental Defense Fund, the organization of the anti-DDT scientists.
We will show that DDT is highly toxic to animal and bird species. In addition to direct toxicity, there are indirect effects and sublethal effects, and this may be occurring even in men.
These conclusions are false, and we will bring in expert witnesses in these various fields to demonstrate that these conclusions are false.
Every objection was heard, every risk considered. Yet the overwhelming conclusion was that DDT had transformed the fate of nations. Surgeon General Jesse Leonard Steinfeld put it bluntly.
Although only used as a pesticide since 1939, DDT has been instrumental in literally changing the course of history for many nations and continues to do so today. Its use in the eradication and control of disease has meant the difference between hunger, despair, and poverty, and good health, hope, and the promise of a better life to billions of people throughout the world. DDT has been responsible for returning to man the use of agriculturally rich lands, thereby making possible improvements in nutrition, providing in turn the energy and strength for social and economic development. It has had a tremendous impact on the health of the world, and few drugs can claim to have done so much for mankind in so short a period of time as can DDT.
The scientific community said it should not be banned. The committee that the EPA had advising them said it should not be banned.
At the end of the testimony, the administrative law judge, Edmund Sweeney, ruled that DDT should not be banned because the facts did not show that DDT was a threat to human health or the environment. His decision was overruled by the EPA Administrator William Ruckelshaus.
The Environmental Protection Agency today banned almost all domestic use of the pesticide DDT by the 31st of December.
Now, in 1970, the National Audubon Society distributed 17,000 yellow leaflets. The message was, quote, DDT should be banned throughout the land and banned from export. They knew that it was being used overseas to control malaria.
80% of American production of DDT is used overseas, much of it in American foreign aid program. The effect of any very severe restriction or ban of DDT in this country would be disastrous on these countries that are now using DDT for public health.
By the time DDT was banned in the United States, malaria had already been wiped out. The same was not true for the developing world. Unfortunately, the fact that the Western world had made a supposedly scientific determination on the use of the chemical, it set the terms for the rest of the world. In hindsight, revisiting the sentiments of the environmental movement at the time. This may have been the point. Dr. Charles Wooster, former chief scientist for the Environmental Defense Fund, was once asked if he thought a ban on DDT might result in the use of more dangerous chemicals and more malaria cases in Sri Lanka. He replied,
"Probably. So what? People are the cause of all the problems. We have too many of them. We need to get rid of some of them, and this is as good a way as any. If the environmentalists can win on DDT, they will achieve a level of authority they have never had before. In a sense, then, much more is at stake than DDT."
My own doubts came when DDT was introduced for civilian use. In Guyana, within 2 years, it had almost eliminated malaria, but at the same time, the birth rate had doubled. So my chief quarrel with DDT in hindsight is that it has greatly added to the population problem